Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech On Air, BiblioTech's official podcast. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Ruby.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Miranda.
And today we're going to be covering our latest Libros and Libations pick, Boys Enter the House by David Nelson.
All right, consensus from the beginning. No, just kidding. Okay. Okay, so let's start off with this interesting book, interesting read. So Nelson intentionally focuses on the victims' lives rather than on Gacy or the crime details. How does this shift in focus affect your understanding of the story and its impact? Does it change how you think about true crime as a genre?
I thought it was interesting how at first all the victims had pretty troubled backgrounds. They were troubled boys, had a lot going on in their personal lives. That's something I never thought was. I mean, I never heard about any of the victims at all until now.
Yeah.
Especially, like, I was looking it up because they're talking about a lot of names, a lot of people. So I was like, man, how many in total were there? I was thinking it was like, oh, like 15, 16. But me and Miranda looked it up and we're like, 33.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I never even imagined to look up and imagine those 33.
I don't remember. Was Gacy convicted of all 33? I don't. He was? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was 33, but at least I think 29.
Okay.
No, I think actually 29 were what was found in his home. And then I think the rest were the ones that were found elsewhere that he was convicted of.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. What did you think was that?
I mean, it was, I do like it feels like kind of a trend, or maybe at least for Libros, how we're getting books that seem to kind of like try to put a bit more history or respect for the victims.
Sure.
So I think that's great. I think the end of the question was like, has this changed your perspective on true crime?
Yeah, as a genre.
No.
No?
No, because it's still very like, when you think of true crime, we think of like podcasters, people talking about the murders, just, the grisly details. And I feel like that's always going to think just because of how romanticized popular true crime is. But it is nice to see like, when authors try to put some respect on the victim's name. So, and it was interesting to see that they covered or tried to cover like as much as they could.
Yeah.
Considering it was quite a number.
Yeah, I feel like I wish it was maybe like organized a little bit better or structured a little bit different because it was like so many names and then like back to back. We're talking about one person and their story, and then immediately just goes into the next one. So I was doing audiobook, so that was throwing me off really bad. So I wish it was just a little bit more different, so I could have been more submerged into it and given more attention. To the victims. That was just where I feel like it fell through a bit.
I agree. Rena, thoughts?
Yeah. I thought, it was a bit confusing with how it jumped around, but it was nice to see a take on it where they really make you focus on the people and make you realize that, like, especially in this one, I liked how, although it jumped a lot, it did make you realize how intertwined these people's lives were. Like, some of their friends lost multiple friends, or in the same neighborhood, there was someone, like, hunting them.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting to, like, have a perspective, because I think, although it was like organized differently, I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, if they had done it one by one by one, I don't think we would have understood how like intertwined their lives were and how it affected such a small community. Like they were losing so many people at once, and because of their troubled lives, they weren't cared for. Like they didn't were like, oh, okay, they ran away, someone saw them maybe. So I think it made me realize that like they're, I don't know, like not focusing on him as much. Like they were like, oh, a guy named John, but this is who he was talking to, and it was a real person with the family.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of true crime people don't do that. They go like straight into just the gory stuff because that's what captures people's attention. So it was cool, and then it did obviously go into more of the details later. But starting it off that way was interesting.
So Laura did mention really quick. Laura, our director, obviously, she mentioned that she was around Chicago at the time, and she had family there and stuff. So she said, because I told her, I was like, I didn't find it as interesting. Obviously, I'm one of those that like wanted to hear the true crime, even though I've heard it before. But she said, the crazy thing is in those neighborhoods, like the fear that was in the young men's eyes, like because you just didn't know, right? Like walking out at that time in the 70s, there were a lot of serial killers and stuff, and going into the early 80s, and it's like she was like, it was scary. It was a scary time. So I hadn't thought of it from that perspective because here I am in South Texas thinking like, oh, it was whatever. But she's like, no, it was real for them up there. So that was interesting. So.
I feel like maybe that's where like it started kind of changing for people as well. Because in the book, when they talk about like, these boys would just go off and be back by the time the sun goes down when the lights would come on. People were expecting that. But then when these boys weren't coming back, it's like something happened to them. So I feel like that unfortunately started changing that in the way we live,
Yeah.
where it's like you can't just go out and come back when the sun goes down anymore.
For sure. Different time. So, okay. So the book gives voice to the boys' personal histories, family, dreams, struggles, relationships, and ambitions. Which individual story stood out most to you and why?
Mm,
Was there anybody in particular? I know there's a lot of names, but was there
yeah.
somebody or some story that was like, wow, that was.
I think I'll probably agree. I know Sylvia mentioned it, and she had said the pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
the kid who worked at the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Rob.
Just because like
Rob
Rob
Peist.
Was that the last one
Mm-hmm.
towards the end.
that they talk about?
Yeah, he was the last one.
Yeah,
What was intriguing
had,
about that?
he had so many connections, and this was one of those cases where it wasn't so much like, kind of trying to do whatever to survive. Like you kind of have a decent job.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so like
Sure.
seeing that kind of subverted the whole like, oh, these are runaways or these are kids who are like, they're willing to do whatever to
Got it.
survive. So it was just kind of interesting to see that like aspect of it
Mm-hmm.
where it affected like, 99% poor people. And not saying he wasn't poor, but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
like
Yeah, I think that one stood out to me as well because that one, like, that was the last one that got John Wayne Gacy, like found out about. So
yeah.
it's like, and then the fact that this boy was intertwined and knew a bunch of people, and the fact that John Wayne Gacy was the last person that he saw as well, that eventually led up to them catching him.
Yeah.
It's like, what, like, was he just being like loose about Gacy? Was he just being loose about that one? Was
Like
he
urgent, just
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say his stood out to me not only because it was the last one, but because he was the only reason that John Wayne Gacy got caught, and it wasn't because I don't think that John Wayne Gacy was like not caring anymore about how he covered up, but because that kid, like you said, like he had a savings account, he had a mom that picked him up and took him to work, like he had all of that, and he went to home and like he didn't have a record, like he didn't have anything that were the police were like, oh, like at this time, like, oh, he was homosexual. Oh, he came from troubled past.
Sure.
Oh, he's like robbed people before. So I think that is the only reason was because they saw him and they're like, oh, he's a good kid. Like we should care.
Mm-hmm.
like
And
it's
I think
hard to
that's
dismiss that.
Yeah, and that's I think basically the only reason he got caught when he did, even after so many lives were lost, because they finally had a perfect victim that had a mom that was like, oh, she's a good mom. She picks him up, she drops him off. He has a savings account. He's saving for a car. Like he hasn't done anything bad. He hasn't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
So something actually must be wrong, not like all these other kids where something was still wrong, but it was like, oh.
It's crazy how this
Yeah.
was like back in the 70s, but it still happens today.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it takes those perfect victims to bring light and the attention to them.
Yeah.
And then like we were talking about at Libro's,
like
Gabby
Savannah Guthrie. Oh yeah,
the Gabby Petito case.
Oh, yeah.
How when they were searching for her, they found so many other victims of color. Just came up about.
Yeah.
Like that's always what it takes.
Yeah, and I was gonna say also, I can't remember the son's name, but his mom's name was Bessie, and she was the one that was like the most outspoken mom, like about everything like going on, not only with her son, but when it came to her son, they listened to her because she was always outspoken and she didn't let anyone tell her that she was wrong.
Yeah.
And that ended up helping a lot, and they ended up looking at his case as well much more clearly because she was an advocate throughout his whole life for other things as well. So she was one of also like the moms I feel like they finally listened to.
I agree. So to all our listeners, like they always say in the true crime world, like you have to be your family or your friends' biggest advocate, right? You have to, because you're going to trust that the justice system's doing their job, but they're so inundated with so many other things that like you have to advocate for these people and say, hey, what's the status? And, be going at it forever until, there's some resolution or until they can give you some information. Because if not, they're, again, they're limited by resources, funding, everything, and you got to be their advocate. So, so speaking of different factors, many victims were targeted, as we mentioned, because of socioeconomic factors, sexual orientation, or lack of social protection. In what ways do you think society failed these young men? What might have changed if they had more support or protection?
I mean, Miranda touched on that pretty well, like with the mom who just, most of these kids didn't have the support system, they had they had like, a bunch of other siblings, their parents had to care for them. So and it was kind of discussed too, when we were at Libros. It was a good point that, these parents are
Just trying to survive.
trying to survive. And it's like when you have all these other kids to look after, if one kind of disappears for a while, it's like, okay, well, they're off doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And also they don't have the means to
Mhm.
constantly be like, hey, what's
We're
can we
gonna go
send out
look for
search
them.
teams, or
Yeah.
can we get any volunteers to go
Sure.
help? It's definitely a different time compared to now, where you have like all these people going out,
Mhm.
searching, bringing out the dogs, whatever.
Yeah.
And we see that John Wayne Gacy, he preyed on that. Like,
Mhm.
he preyed on an already marginalized community of, younger homosexual men and
Mhm.
kids still.
Sure.
Mhm.
And we see that, a lot of his victims were very, very poor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Socioeconomic factors. I know you mentioned, the moms advocating for
Yeah.
their kids and stuff, but what I guess thinking about law enforcement or just the community as a
Yeah.
whole, like what could they have done? Do you think it was because my segue to the next question? So it talks about homophobia and societal bias at the time. So how did the book address systemic bias? Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think how they talked about it was really interesting because obviously all of that still goes on today.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
just like we don't want to look at it or we don't want to think about it. And because like being gay or like it's much more open now, but back then it's insane to think that they knew these were children at the
Mhm.
corner. Like they knew that or even that like they just needed money that badly.
Yeah.
And even in the book, he's like, I'm calling these people just like Johns or people that pick up, but like they're pedophiles, like,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And so it's just interesting the verbiage even the author had to use
Mhm.
in order to match the time because they didn't call it that. They were just like, oh, it's a young kid meeting up with just a John. Like, no,
Mhm.
that's grandpa. Like,
Sure.
that's
Sure.
like, that's crazy. But for them, it was normal and they just needed money that bad that that was something they just did. And I think from the police perspective, it was super harmful that they didn't view it as that child is being harmed and
Yeah.
like they're doing this out of necessity to eat or to like take care of their own family and bring it back to like their family and their friends. Like they were also using that money for their friends who weren't like able to do anything.
Sure.
And the police would pick up the child as well and like arrest the child and like
Mhm.
stuff like that. And it makes
Mhm.
them just more fearful of the police, not asking for help when they're harmed in those situations. So I think from the police perspective, that was like interesting that that's just how they viewed it was like, oh, if the term homosexual hits that case, it's automatically deemed like not worthy to be looked into.
Yeah.
But so that's very interesting because Gacy knew that too.
Yes.
Mhm.
So he knew that like they're not going to take a look at this.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not about me and my
Mhm.
homosexuality or whatever. It's
Yeah.
about them.
Yes.
They're not going to search
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
So they were easier targets for him,
Yes.
and it's unfortunate. That was his tactic and it
Mhm.
worked for a long time. So
It did work.
And it's kind of a shame seeing that, like, John had, he had friggin' a record already. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
they would incarcerate Gacy, or not incarcerate him maybe, but like put him through trial because he already had, a history of like sexual violence,
Yeah.
or,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Sure.
And so when, as law enforcement, you don't think of all these people going missing in the same neighborhood, and then you think of like, oh, well, this guy has a record, and we
Mhm.
know like maybe we should go check. We've gotten reports of like the house smelling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Two and two,
Yeah.
it's just the incompetence and just
Yeah.
like neglect
Sure.
that law enforcement.
They had so many reasons like to look
Yes.
into him, but it's
Absolutely.
just one of those where it's like in that Ted Bundy when they were talking about how one of his victims escaped
Mhm.
and the cop and then he was like, oh, that's just like my lover, he's out of
Yeah.
it, whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
ew, gay, go back
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
like
I think that
like
was
you're
Dahmer.
doing Dahmer,
Dahmer,
yeah.
yeah.
Dahmer,
And they're
yeah.
like, oh yeah, they're like, ew, gross, yeah, just
Pretty
take
much.
care of him, take care of him and put that back in your house.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? Like that's
Yeah.
insane.
And it just shows how easy it is for them to just be like, poor, gay, not my
Yeah.
problem.
And
What do you, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think also what helped him was simply just being confident in a time where
Mhm.
if you acted like you had control, like they would just let you have it.
Mhm.
And so the way he did
Very
it,
true.
like how Romeo said, like if he threw out like, oh, like he was just like a homosexual, like he was here, like he wanted to be here, and I'm
Mhm.
confident in saying that, and I'm the adult, so like they just automatically always like I think his confidence is insane, like
Yeah.
how far it carried him.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he talked to the moms, like he would get phone calls from the police, like he got interviewed, like the news interviewed him even after one of them, and he still was just like, "Oh, yeah, I knew him. He worked for me." But
Mhm.
he just said he wanted to run away, so he ran away. And they were like, "Oh, okay."
How did
I'm
the
like,
red flag never go off?
I'm like,
Take your word for it. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think, just a quick segue, do you think any of those issues have improved today?
Yes
men
and
and
no.
women.
Mm.
It's tough.
Talk about it a little bit. Yes, how, and no how. Or how not.
Again, I mean, we see how a good comparison is that we've been seeing on the news like Savannah Guthrie, advocating for her mom who
Sure.
was gone missing, kidnapped from her own home,
Mhm.
and she's well known news anchor, and she has the money to do all these things. But then on the flip side, we have like we were just talking about it too, that we see we just saw the anniversary of I believe her name is Paula Diaz, the HEB worker who went missing here in San Antonio roughly 15 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that there's still no updates about that. They have footage of her going back to her truck, and just nothing.
Yeah, that's it.
And it just kind of goes to show, like, here in San Antonio, it might be a big deal, but it's not going to get the national coverage of like something, as someone from an affluent celebrity status or
Sure.
different tax bracket.
Correct.
I think in that way that you talked about, Rosanna, it's very similar. Like your status gets you very far. Whether it was then, whether it's now, like how you said, like when I see people from our area that have gone missing, it's on Facebook through like a handmade poster of their child.
Yeah.
And it's being shared by people I went to high school with or people like in our area. I never see it spread further. And that's just because who's looking for someone in our area if those parents don't have the reach or maybe for some reasons can't reach out to the public because of their situation.
Sure.
And so it's like that I think has stayed very much the same. Your status, your connections, like if you have a buddy in the police system, like you could literally just call them and you already have something rolling because they're gonna be like, oh, like that's basically my niece. Like we need to look. It's if you don't know anyone like that or you're not comfortable reaching out to people like that, it doesn't go very far. And I think it's the same then. Like some of them couldn't reach out to anyone.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy to think about? Like what's never gonna change is that killers walk amongst us all the time.
Oh yeah.
And that's creepy. You're just walking around somewhere and there's you don't know who's who. So always be rude to people. Don't be afraid to be rude.
They say be rude, be weird,
be kind. Be rude, and stay alive. I'm sorry, that's how it is.
Be kind. Rewind.
There you go. So okay. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, but the book explores how relationships formed among some of the victims before their deaths. How did these connections influence your understanding of the boys as full human beings rather than victims or statistics?
That they were all so like intertwined with each other. Like I imagine serial killers and I just imagine like they're constantly moving like to cover their tracks.
Sure.
Like they're gonna kill over here and then kill over here and kill over here. But I feel like with Gacy's like they were all so close.
Yeah.
It's just wild to think about. And then the fact that he was able to do it for so long with it being so close.
Yeah.
It puts it into perspective of almost thinking about it. Because, I mean, it talks about how most of them graduated from the same high school on the same day and then went missing soon after or had just hung out or died together. And I think it makes you think of, if you put it into perspective of, like, just my high school, that's like walking the hallways and just people just disappearing and no one caring.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes you realize how easily it could happen in just our own area or very like small towns where people don't want to question things and don't want to believe that could happen. So yeah, it made it kind of scary because that could happen and people may not question it and they could pick the right victims. And even I may be in that school and be like, oh, well, they talked about this, so maybe that's what it is.
Sure.
It's very easy to do though. Well, maybe it's this because who wants to think it could be literally someone snatching people? That's like not something you want to think about.
So the picture I got as y'all were talking about that, like, you think about BiblioTech staff. There's about 55 of us. Can you imagine just removing 33?
Yeah.
And then seeing who's left. That's insane.
That's
like
a lot of people.
So like if you're walking in the halls and like just remove 33 people and like they're gone. It's, and the proximity. It's so like you mentioned, his confidence, so daring, so brazen, just to be like, I'm not gonna get caught. And he did for a long time, just because he had the confidence to say, whatever,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's kind of interesting. You put it in that perspective because I would think that like after maybe person 5 or 6 goes missing, I feel like BiblioTech staff would be at least privileged and cognizant enough that something's going on with like our workers, our staff. We have the resources to be like, okay, well, they're county workers. Let's go to BCSO, put in a report. You or Laura might be like, hey, what's going on with our staff? Why are they missing? Has anyone contacted their family? And again, I feel like that comes from
the privilege.
That would be a privilege for us. But say someone who works at like a McDonald's, say if like some of them were to go missing, I think they would just be like, replace them or
super high turnover.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, they just
Yeah.
quit or they
Yeah.
stop showing up for their job.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
here, it'd be like, that's strange.
But-
It's
Yeah.
not like them or whatever.
But I don't know. It's also like you think about like the area. Like all of them were in his house,
Mhm.
and there's a smell. Whatever you're like, how to know and put two and two together. But I think about like Woodland Park or like the Ladybird Lake in Austin. How like they're
Yes.
constantly finding bodies in
Yeah.
there,
And no one's doing anything about
exactly.
it.
And it's like you hear about it, and it's trending. And it's like all
Yeah.
these women are missing. All these women are being found. Whatever, and then it just kind of like falls off. You know.
Like they'll say
So-
like, oh, they were unhoused people, or oh, same thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, they were kind of nightlifers.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, here at Woodlawn, I think several that passed away there is just like, oh, they were vagrants.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was it. It's like, okay, but they're still humans, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Investigate it. So
Mhm.
it's pretty
Yeah.
sad. So speaking of investigations and police presence, so how did the portrayal of justice in the book affect you? Was it satisfying, incomplete, or complicated?
Ugh.
I was like, what justice?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they lethal injection on him. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's no one gets a happy ending. in
Sure.
this.
Yeah. I think it was, complicated because at the end, yes, they did come to conclusions. Yes, you did get to see what toll it took on them,
Mhm.
especially when we got to the investigators that were doing the actual digging.
Yeah.
That was very interesting to see how he was literally like, I had to go dig up bodies, go home and see my relatives and
Mhm.
celebrate holidays and go back. Like, that does give you perspective on it. It does take a toll on them, but it also took a toll on 33 individuals along with all of their families that were reaching out for years asking
Yeah.
for help. And even at the
Yeah.
end, when it talked about how one of the bodies wasn't even identified correctly,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that mom thank God, kept advocating for herself. She was like, "This isn't my son. Like, this isn't my son." And they were like, "Oh, yes, it is," until she had to pay to get her own son's body like taken out of the ground, tested, and do all that. So it just shows you, like, yes, they did come to a conclusion. Yes, they did end up having to like kill him in the prison, and he's no longer there. But they're all still suffering. Most of them don't have answers. There's still people like kids that don't have photos up or still missing, and they didn't really do much for that. So it was very complicated because they
Mhm.
put someone away, but then you come out years later after that man has already died, and you find out they misidentified bodies, and it
Yeah.
could have been more. And now there's families that may be questioning, was that my son I buried? And some don't want to know because they're fine, like, just trying to live with that. And so I feel like they made things more complicated for some people as well.
Like, case closed, done.
Yeah.
Let's not think about it
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah.
I will say the book affected me in a way. I don't know how to describe it, but it's sad because there's no repercussions for the lack of justice, right?
Mhm.
We're not talking about these investigators or these cops that didn't
Mhm.
do their job. They're
Yeah.
not experiencing the jail time. They don't have to
Yeah.
live with it. Maybe some of them might go home and think like, man, had I
Mhm.
done this,
Mhm.
20 years ago, 10 years ago, but it's the families that ultimately always suffer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Their loved one is gone and they don't get them back.
Mhm.
And that's it. The investigators moved on. And it's like, it was really sad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even know if the book shared if he had any kind of remorse or even said anything in the end. It like there was a part where John Wayne Gacy, when he was being questioned, and he said that one of his family members had died or something like that.
Mhm.
And he was like, "What, do you have no respect for the dead?" I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, the audacity of this guy to even say this is crazy."
Yeah. Okay, so many book reviews criticize the structure of the book and state they had difficulty following along with so many names and relationships. Do you agree with these reviews? Why or why not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Um,
pretty much the general
yeah.
consensus. A lot of front loading.
I do like your
Yes.
take, Miranda, how like there was a purpose to
Yeah.
show that it was all intertwined.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, put a
Yeah.
little bit more definition in it.
Sure.
Because I did not like that I had the mentality where I was just trying to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yeah.
no, that's not the right way to go about this.
Almost feels disrespectful.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was the first, literally, like, on my Kindle, it said 53%, and then at 53, I was zooming through it because it became chronological. Like, the trial took place very timely, and then even after that, it made sense. But getting started, I would get so confused because I
Yeah.
wouldn't realize it switched to another boy or
Yeah.
his family, and it
Correct.
was just a name, and I was like, whose mom is this? Or, like, whose
Yeah.
sibling is talking about their brother? And it felt,
Mhm.
I almost felt bad because I was like, I'm getting all of their details confused, and I felt bad because I was like, we're supposed to be feeling for them, and I can't even remember whose sibling is talking so lovely
Sure.
about their brother,
Yeah.
or like what their brother or one of the girlfriends would talk, and I'm like, but whose girlfriend was this? And
Mhm.
the timelines were getting kind of crossed in my head of when everything was taking place.
Yeah.
I don't think Nelson did an injustice. I know what he was trying
Yeah.
to do, and it's very much appreciated
Yeah.
to give him a purpose and a life,
Yes.
give them their life back.
Mhm.
But I think maybe prefacing the book by saying, "Hey, like I'm gonna drop crazy names and
Yeah.
be prepared," type thing. It was confusing. So kind of going into what you mentioned, and we talked about this before we started recording. The book kind of came off as almost academic with a lot of history involved. So do you think the feel of the book was more history, journalism, or memorial? Like, what do you think about that?
When I was talking about it with someone, I said that it almost felt, I think I would go journalism side, because in my brain it almost felt like he just dropped his notes into the first half of the book and moved on to then more detailed parts of going through the trial.
That makes sense.
Because it did feel like he got so many answers and he had such great conversations with their families, but I couldn't appreciate it because it felt very jumpy. Like I couldn't sit in their story. I kind of just had to take myself out of it and go to something else. And then by the time I came back to that person, I couldn't remember like what they were talking about. So I would say probably more on the journalistic. If I could see him just sitting there taking notes, and then just typing it up and like moving on.
That makes sense. What do you think about that? Be more like investigative journalism or like history?
Definitely journalism, but I do like the perspective that and I'm so sorry I don't remember who mentioned it, but that it is also historical because you learn about like Chicago and society at the time.
Sure.
Just how
Talked about uptown Chicago.
which almost feels like a character in itself.
Yeah, you're right. I do think there was some memorial to it because again, I think Nelson was trying to give readers and listeners a sense of who these individuals were because they were more than just a victim or a statistic. They had a life. They they were graduated in a lot of cases. They were barely starting their life. So I think it was part memorial, part journalism. History, I could see it a little bit just in terms of the history of the violent criminal and killer and murderer that John Wayne Gacy was. But I do agree that with your take, how it's very like taking my notes, kind of Stephen King-ish, just start typing everything up and boom, just put it into a book. So I can appreciate what he did, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So what emotions did the book leave with you?
Frustration, mainly about the law enforcement stuff.
I think frustration's a good word, but also like almost like an incomplete feeling because I feel like there's just so much left unsaid for a lot of the families that it kind of just made me feel like that's it. Like it's happened so long ago, and there's like how the author included since 2020 this has not been answered. Since this year, this person that was brought up in the investigation has never been found. So like it was just, it's insane how empty, like there's still so many people missing that were brought up in the investigation, or like you just realize like so many, like none of those families will probably ever get answers, and that was really sad to realize.
And it wasn't even that long ago.
No,
literally
not at
like
all.
what, 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah, it made me think of my mom because I was like, this is a time where she was growing up. Like this was her childhood. So I was like, that's just insane to hear live happening and know that that's becoming more rampant, and that I was just like, that's crazy. And, like it's not that long ago at all.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Yeah. So it's almost as old as or I'm almost as old as that even. But anyways, okay, so yeah, definitely a lot of emotions in the book. So just to kind of wrap things up with the book, so what were your overall thoughts? Did you like it or dislike it, or like would you recommend it to others, or what would you say to others about the book?
I thought it was good. I mean, it's interesting to hear more about. I like hearing more about the victims. I'm tired of hearing more about all these serial killers and reading more about them. So the victims, I really really like. Like it reminded me of Bright Young Women when we read and discussed that. So not I'm becoming less and less of a true crime fan, but from the perspective of the victims, it's really interesting. It helped. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I think I would recommend it to specific people. Like if I know that they're very into it, I would recommend it. If it was just someone that's just a little curious, I think it might be almost like push them away from that because this book was definitely kind of different. But I think it was great. I mean, it still did its job. We still are here sitting talking about the victims. Like it's starting conversations, it's reminding people, it's showing that it wasn't that long ago. So I think it did its job in the end. I mean, even the reviews I read like said the same thing. I stuck through though, and I learned something, or I enjoyed it, and I think it did its job. So I would recommend it.
Yeah, it's definitely great for group discussions like this.
I agree.
Because again, it gets people talking. You get to just kind of have that open discussion of let me restart that. I'm so sorry.
No, I see where you're going. It's like I don't see myself reading it on my own. Like picking it up and reading it on my own and just sitting with it and that's it. I feel like, oh God, that would kind of mess me up. just sitting with it and not talking about anyone else who read it, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like in a book club discussion, it's a good pick, yeah.
Yes.
Like Miranda said, I would definitely recommend it to specific people too.
Mhm.
Like someone who's interested in reading more, who retains information very well, first of all, and who is just genuinely interested in like the after effects of it all.
I think I'm the only one that didn't really like it. But for me, I'm really picky with structure and grammar and chronology, and it was just everywhere for me. That was the only again, super important to talk about the victims, forget the serial killer. But truly, it was just the structure that kind of. I mean, I braved through it, like you mentioned. It's good. We all have different perspectives, and I think it's important that we continue to share these stories. But I just had a very difficult time getting into it. It was very hard for me. So I didn't dislike it, but I just, again, I think I agree with y'all saying that I would recommend it in a book club setting to have as a group discussion versus like I'm sitting here or listening to a 12-hour audiobook. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think if it were on my own, and it's gonna sound terrible, I don't think I would have.
It's a lot to commit to.
Yeah.
So.
Book club setting chapter by chapter.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good idea too. Absolutely. So, okay, so what are you all currently reading?
I just started a new book. It's called Antarctica. It's a bunch of short stories by Claire Keegan.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
What's it about?
All of them are different like topics, but it's basically like how women struggle in relationships and like how it ends for them in different scenarios.
Nice.
Interesting.
That sounds very
interesting.
Antarctica?
Yeah. It's pretty short too. I think it's only about 200 pages.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, so it's not long at all.
Are they
look into that.
they're like vignettes? Like every chapter is a different woman? Or?
Every chapter is a different short story, and some are like maybe 10 minutes long, some are like 8 minutes.
Sure.
They're pretty short. It's really enjoyable so far.
Cool.
Okay.
Rosanna, what about you?
I'm reading manga.
Anything in particular? Any series?
I'm going through the Jujutsu Kaisen Frieren, because that one's very popular and very on hold. There's a couple Pink Candy Kiss, My Hero. I'm just trying to consume it all, man. Now that like the weeb in me has been reawakened over the past like couple of years.
Cool.
It's just playing catch up.
Nice.
Ruby?
I'm reading The Poppy War, the first book of the R. Kwong series. I don't know if I'm going to commit and read the other two books. I really liked Babel and wanted to stay on that revolution type feeling. So that's why I dove right into The Poppy War. But I like it so far.
Interesting.
But I'm not going to finish the series.
At least you're honest and you know.
I'm rereading a book. It's like my third time. It's I'm embarrassed to say, but it's my favorite book because it's called Wolf Boys. Basically, it's because of like the area I'm from. So it's about these two American teenagers who became Zeta cartel hitmen. And it's about the spillover violence. They're my age. They graduated same year as me, and it hit home a lot when I first read the book because I was so naive when I was 18, 19. I would cross to Reynosa, Matamoros, and we were just going to drink and whatever, and like. At the same time, these young guys were assassinating people, and I had no idea.
Like that could have been you.
And well, we did get pulled over by the military once in Reynosa, and they had us at gunpoint there with ARs and everything, and they told us to go, but they told us in Spanish like you're gonna get in your car, we're gonna follow you to the bridge, and you're gonna get the F out of here. And when we got to the bridge, they turned around.
Dang.
And I think about that time, and it's scary. So it's a very interesting book, though.
How old were you around that time?
I was 18, 19.
18, 19.
Yeah, because I graduated in 2005, and that's when the guy's name's Gabriel Cardona. He was one of the sicarios. He's my age, born in 86 like I was. And from where I'm from, you went down one of two roads, man. You made something of yourself, or you went and did some crazy crap. And these guys went down that road. It's scary. So that's what I'm reading.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but next book club pick is Tender is the Flesh.
Yes, Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Basterrica. If you don't already know, we have done an episode on Tender is the Flesh, as well as her other novel, The Unworthy, and bonus, we actually have an interview with the author herself, so make sure you go back and check out those episodes. And if you want to join the book club talk for that, it's going to be, once again, at Burleson Yard Garden.
April 6th.
April 6th. So make sure y'all join us there for a discussion. It's going to be a lively one, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, a lot of highly, well-known book, highly regarded. So yeah, make sure y'all join us and check out those previous episodes, once again, through BiblioTech on Air. But with that said, we'll go ahead and end that here for today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Ruby.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Miranda.
And we will catch you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Later.